Good evening. Welcome to the sixth meeting of the Cross Lake City Council for the year 2015. This is the regular council meeting, June 8th, 2015, 7 p.m., Cross Lake City Hall. We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There was a significant addition to the agenda. Before we close the meeting today, there will be a closed session. Need a motion to approve the additions to the agenda.
So moved.
Motion Hecox,
Second.
second Wessels. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent calendar. All items here are listed. Listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or a council member wishes to pull it from the agenda. Motion to approve the consented calendar.
So moved.
Motion Wessels,
Second.
second Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving right along. Public forum. No action will be taken on any of these items. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on an agenda of a future meeting. The speaker must state their name, address, and each speaker is preferably given a 3-minute time limit unless requested otherwise. Is there anybody that wants to speak at the public forum? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Eric Miller. I live at 12482 Whitefish Avenue, Cross Lake. And I was just wondering how I would get more information. Several months ago, we had talked about the issues with Mr. Bilski and that whole right-of-way near our property. And I wasn't sure if anything ever had become of that or any kind of closure, and I wasn't sure if there's someplace I could look that up or if that comes back on the table, because I thought that there was some mention that it was going to shelve for a few months and we were going to try to deal with it at another time.
No, I don't know if it was necessary. Shall Brad Person, our city attorney, can comment for you?
Yeah, it's, actually, he just called, we had it tabled until he was going to, I'm not sure where it is yet, but he got some more survey work done and is going to come back with a proposal. And he's actually meeting at my office tomorrow with me at 4 o'clock, I think it is. I don't know what he's going to show me yet, but obviously in the end, it'll get to council. Next meeting would be the idea.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public forum is still open. Anybody else? Usually we could do that like a motion, call for it 3 times. We'll close the public forum. The mayor's report. We need a resolution to approve a donation from the Cross Lake Ideal Lions and the PAL Foundation.
I'll move that we approve the donations from the Lions Club, $8,000, PAL Foundation, $123. Its list is D1 for us, Resolution 15 dash whatever it's going to be.
I'll second.
Motion made by Wessels for to accept a donation of $8,000 from the Cross Lake Ideal Lions for the purchase of a radio headset for communications for the new fire engine. Seconded by Gary Hecox.
Mr. Owen.
Included in this, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, $8,000 donation by the Lions Club. That organization does a ton of good for the city. I just wanted to make mention of that. That's a huge donation and great for the fire department and all of us who live here in town.
And then there was also a donation, it looks to me like it says it's from the Pell Foundation, or is it to the Pell Foundation, Shar? From the Pell Foundation for $123.91 to reimburse the city for community garden expenditures. Can we include that in your, well, we already
Yes, I
seconded
did,
it.
yep, it's this resolution here.
Was that in your motion?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have several commission appointments that we should approve this evening, discuss and approve. I'm bringing forward Dale Melberg for the Public Works Cemetery Sewer Commission, and to Cross Lake Communications, Doug Benzer. Dale is a longer-term citizen here in Cross Lake, has been served on other commissions as well. Doug Benzer would be his first term. He is, if I remember right, he's a technology head for the,
Black Ridge Bank.
which one?
Black Ridge.
Black Ridge Bank, yep. Any comments?
If we could separate those two, I would appreciate it.
You what?
If we could separate those two appointments.
Sure, we'll separate them.
Right.
Go ahead.
I've got in my hands, and you were emailed a copy of Mr. Melberg's resignation letter to Planning and Zoning a year and a half ago when we made the switch from our own planning and zoning to hiring the county to do it. And there's some rather derogatory remarks in here toward the council as a whole. And I'm just wondering, he's not here today, and he didn't answer his questionnaire on if he had any conflicts of interest or of that sort of thing. And those types of questions that are on that questionnaire, he didn't fill that in. I'm just wondering if he's over that.
And your position on this is?
Well, when you have somebody who quits because he's a protest vote against the council that he's supposed to be serving, and now we're going to put him back into a position just like that, a year and a half later, I think we should hear an explanation from him as to why he quit before, if it's different than his letter from September 24th, and how he sees his position moving forward as an advisor on an advisory commission. I recall several statements from this gentleman that he was upset that council never followed the advice of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Now, council at that time, 2013, I'd only been on the council for about 7 months. So I'm assuming he's talking about council over the period of years prior to that.
Are you objecting to his comments or his resignation?
I'm objecting to, or I'm wondering why he wants to get back involved. He says, I refuse to be associated with the behavior of the council. Well, now he wants to be associated with us again, apparently.
Can I talk a little, Mr. Mayor?
You okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
All right. Dave?
I'm the liaison on the Public Works Commission, and we're having a lot of trouble getting volunteers. And I actually asked him if he would be willing to be one of the members. We never have a quorum. Last year, they had 5 meetings. They had 7 that were canceled, some of them due to lack of quorum. This year, we've had 2 meetings where we didn't have enough people. Now, we did get Mr. Pribble on, which is going to help. I think Dale was probably objecting to things that happened in the past, and I just soon leave them in the past. They're done. They're over. There's nothing we can do about it. And when we get citizens that want to volunteer to come to the meetings, I think we really should think hard about turning them away or voting them down. It's kind of my viewpoint. I was one of the guys that also resigned, and I'm sitting here today.
You put your name in the hat and ran for council, got elected, and I applaud you for that.
Yeah, but I just think that's in the past. I think the process by which we ended up removing some employees and getting the city in is probably what he objected to. Now, it turns out today that if you look at the way the P&Z group is operating, I think everybody's pretty pleased with what's happening. But at the time, it was kind of a shock to him, and I think that's what really sent him off, so.
I understand.
I guess what I'm trying to do is get a full complement on Public Works and generate more of an interest in Public Works. I've had some complaints from the guys that we don't get, we don't get used like we should be used to make suggestions and then give advice to the people, and that's what we want to do. So I'm just trying to build it up. I haven't run an ad yet.
Does he, you think he's changed his opinion?
I think so. I think he has.
Mr.
If I
Schrupp?
could make a comment. He reacted to the situation much as one who was on this council and voted as a position of one many times. I don't think it was the objection to the issue. It was I objected to the process. And in my conversations with Dale, I think that's pretty much where he was as well. There are 3 volunteers that rolled over during that time, and they are all willing to be back here working for the city. And I think we should give them all a chance, and if we have a problem again, we should certainly talk with them. Mm-hmm. But my recommendation is that we should accept Dale's letter to, or application for the commission.
We had a revision to our policy for commission members recently. It's got your autograph on it. Nothing in there alarming other than it does make mention and stresses the point that they are advisory.
That they what?
That they are advisory, not advisory, not,
right.
So if they make a decision to do one thing and the council does another, that shouldn't upset them, and if it does, I'd fear he'd quit again. So I want to make that, if you think he understands that it's advisory only, the thing of it is, I think he's a very intelligent guy, and I think he
Yeah,
did a great
yeah.
job in the P&Z when he was
Yep,
here.
yep.
I disagree with every reason why he quit, and
Yep.
when he did that, he put people who had business before that commission in jeopardy of losing their permits or variances. that
That's
sort
kind of
thing.
like, you were on the council at the time and you had objectives, and people don't always agree. That's kind of what happens. Somebody's going to come out and be a winner, somebody's going to be a loser. I think what I'm trying to do is get, the more people we get on Public Works, the more ideas we get, the better advice we get, and yes, the council does have the final say, but we need to have some recommendations. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is make it like the Library Commission or Cross Lake Communications. And
I served with Mr. Melberg at our 55-meter meeting, Chapter 3 revision. Sat next to him, and I thought we got along pretty well. Since that time, he avoids me. So I don't know.
He will again.
But
I'm sure.
here's the thing, is that I think he did a good job. We didn't agree on a whole lot on Chapter 3, but we were able to talk about it at that time, and hopefully he'll do that again.
I'll accept a motion to approve Dale Melberg to the Public Works Cemetery Sewer Commission.
I'll make that motion if that's what you're asking.
I am.
I'll second that.
Motion Schrupp, second Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
We also have an applicant, Doug Benzer, for the Cross Lake Communications Advisory Board. Young blood, new guy, could be a real asset to us. Need a motion to approve him.
I'll make that motion.
Motion Wessels,
I'll second it.
second Hecox. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So be it. We also, and I think that I would ask Chris Spence to come forward, we have a letter from the National Association of Counties, which is granting Crow Wing County a 2015 Achievement Award for its program titled County-City Partnership Collaborating for Water Quality and Customer Service. Chris, Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, we just got this late last week. Crow County is part of the National Association of Counties, which represents over 3,000 counties across the United States. And we submitted an application to them for their County Achievement Awards, and we received notification last week that the county and the city had won an award for their, in the category of County Resiliency, Infrastructure, Energy, and Sustainability. Just to kind of give you an idea of what this means, there are a total of 21 categories that NACO does every year for these awards. This program that we submitted was best in class in this category. So across the entire United States, out of everybody that submitted an award application for this one category, this was picked as the best of the best. And we were actually been asked to go out to Mecklenburg, North Carolina, out by Charlotte, to actually be there to accept an application. They have an award ceremony, and we've been invited to go out to be part of that. So I just want to just come up and say thank you to the city and to staff, John and Cheryl, and to the county board for the. It wasn't easy. I mean, we just had a conversation about that. This wasn't easy to make some of these decisions, but. I do think that the results show in these types of awards, and it's something I'm proud of, and I think I would hope that you would be proud of it too. I think some of the results that we've been able to achieve working with the city has been really important and really huge. I think it's making a lot of change, not only in this part of the state, but it's having an impact across the entire country on how people see what can governments do when they decide to get together and work together to see if they can drive down cost and improve customer service at the same time.
Well, I thank you, Chris, and I thank Cheryl and John for contributing to that and being part of our community and helping us with our planning and zoning as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is actually their second national award. You had,
If we're counting right, it may be more.
and since they've been here in a year and a half, we've had 2 letters of commendation from the DNR. We got a grant from the Heritage Foundation. This is their second national award. They're doing an awesome job, and I hear it every day. 100% approval ratings. Prior, we had 72% approval ratings. I hear it from in my line of work. I hear it a lot. People are always, man, they're just great to work for. They told me I couldn't do that, but I could do this instead, and I'm getting my building put up.
Those of us who have served in support of planning and zoning realize it's not a nice job. It is a challenge, and you guys are to be commended for making it work. Thank you. Commission reports. Mr. Kevin Larson for Cross Lake Communications.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you. Mayor Rowe, I'd like to first thank Shar and Dan. I have a commitment at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it's about 3 hours away, so I'm going to be traveling tonight, so they moved me up on the agenda, and I do appreciate that. On my highlight report, the first items you've already approved. I'd like to go right into number 5. Well, you've already done number 5 too, excuse me, and I appreciate you appointing Doug Benzer as an alternate. The young man's attended a meeting or two, and a sharp young, like you said, Mayor, new blood, a young guy, should be good for us. Number 6, we've had a lot of interest. We started some new packages because of the cable rates going up. We now have had over 300 customers taking some new type of packages, and we continue to push that. And I really want to thank my marketing team from CTC and Debbie and Cindy and the whole staff down at Cross Lake Communications for continuing to push that and give our citizens options. And we also believe that our cable TV problem, where the main networks were freezing up, has been corrected. Now, recently, I believe it was Channel 9 or something that was out for a number of hours. That was the channel itself broadcasting. They went off the air for a number of hours. It was, I believe, Mayor Rowe, it was about 5:30 in the morning. Was it not? I think you told me that. So, but if you have freezing up of your channels, please give us a call, and we'll continue to monitor that. Also, the advisory board, we spent a lot of time at our last meeting discussing our strategic planning meeting that we all attended. And they gave me basically three action items to go forward with. One, I'm going to continue to monitor with Olson Thielen what's happening at the FCC concerning the USF, or Universal Service Reform, and that is very instrumental on whether we could put together a financial pro forma and even apply someplace for any rebuild money. Remember, we were talking, it was in the $7.5 million range to finish the city with fiber optics. So that was number one. I'm going to be continually looking at that and bringing an update to the next advisory board meeting. And second, we're going to, they asked me to work with city staff, with Mike Linus, on the city fee, to come back to the advisory board on what effects would it have if the advisory fee, or excuse me, the city fee were terminated or whatever. So the advisory board is looking at options. I'm getting data from Mike Linus, and we're going to present that at the next meeting, and they may or may not make a recommendation at that point in time to you folks concerning the city fee. As you know, we'd love to keep that money to, I know you need roads and we need fiber optics, so it's kind of a push and shove type thing. So. Finally, the last 5 days have not been the best 5 days in our system. We've had a lot of storms, we've had a lot of lightning damage, and we've had some outages on the internet. And in fact, I got a call at 5 minutes to 7 tonight. We still got people working on some issues. And it started last Wednesday, Thursday, and had significant problems on Friday, and we continue to have problems today. And when you have lightning and electronics, it can cause a lot of problems, and they don't always show up the first day of the lightning, and they don't always show up the second day after the lightning. But I'll tell you this, that we've got all bodies working on that, and they're working on it tonight also. And another problem cropped up today out on 36. We have a temporary fiber optic laying on the ground, and it appears that there might be some damage to that because some people are getting fuzzy TV and clicking on their phones. So we got to go out and try to find where maybe that temporary fiber has been damaged. But we'll continue to work on that tomorrow, or as soon as we can find that. So it is a busy week, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, that concludes my report for this month.
I think Kevin and his crew have done a fantastic job. It's been one after the other of little pieces here and there. And I think I talked to him rather harshly one day. And he explained to me that there are lots of small pieces that go into this. It wasn't just one thing. And I've grown to appreciate it. I've grown to appreciate the service they're giving us. And it's just like the whole thing fell on CTC and their crew. And I really want to thank you for that, Kevin. You've done a great job.
Appreciate it, Mayor. And once again, if you have troubles, we can't fix them if you don't call us. So please call us. Yep. And we'll get on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. City Administrator's Report. That would be Dan Vogt.
If I can, Mr. Chairman and members, we've got item 1, this capital planning policy and recommendations from David Drown. I'd like to turn that over to Mike to go through the information that Mr. Drown provided, and I will certainly provide additional commentary as well.
Sure. I'm not going to go into this in line item by line item, but included in your packet, as Dan said, is item F1, is a policy recommendation for the council's consideration. And the purpose of presenting this tonight is to provide you some information on what capital planning and financing policy might look like. So this is for your review. No action is required on this tonight, as we'll be getting further into this as we get into the budgeting process. So it's for your information and review, and questions and comments are welcome, but preferably not tonight. Okay. With that, the second item in there is a capital planning and funding policy for your review. And again, these are some suggestions on what a formal policy might look like. And again, we'd like you to review this, come back to us with comments, and we can incorporate those items or changes or policy decisions when we go through the budgeting process.
Well, if I can, the types of things we've talked about, we had a department head meeting this afternoon and discussed items. It's really up to the way you want this to move forward. If the city and the council as a majority does not choose to issue debt, you can certainly tell us that in the policy. You know, we don't wish to issue debt, that we would like to fund these projects with cash. And what will happen then is that your 5-year capital plan, which was updated not too long ago by Dave, as well as the rest of the department heads, when we put that together during the budgeting process, if you want to do everything by cash, you just have to stretch things out further, obviously. You know, you do have I think a fairly sizable amount of cash, and then nearly $400,000 that you can, allocate towards these projects, and that, I mean, that certainly isn't, small change. But when you have projects that take up bigger areas, let's say, $1.4 million, $1.5 million, as you could see in the letter from David Drown, and some of the out years are $1.3 million. Those become a little more difficult. As Mr. Drown had suggested at his meeting here, is you're looking at, the possibility of financing those over, as a relatively short period of time. Anything under 10 years is fairly short term when you look at that type of financing. But, certainly it is something to look at. He also suggests the possibility that the budget levy continue to increase incrementally. Certainly for inflation and whatever you're comfortable with, hopefully we can get this on track where you and future councils will continue to fund the capital program in whatever way that you decide to set up. So, I think we're on a good path here. As Mike said, we've talked about the budgeting process is going to be coming up. City's budget, July, August, we've got to have a preliminary levy put in by September, which is pretty far in advance of that upcoming year and what projects you might want to perform for that upcoming year. So, we have a lot of months here yet before we get to the end of the year and the end of budgeting process. So you've got some time to take a look at the policy, take a look at the information from Mr. Drown. We will talk about it at future meetings, certainly. And if you would like a lengthy discussion at some point, I think we should set up a work session just to talk about capital planning and capital budgeting. But I think we've made some good strides. We've got the equipment certificates done. We've bought the piece of fire equipment and other pieces of equipment. We've got the sewer plant handled with a process that we have put into place and you have agreed to with the money that's available with a bond issue that's ending. So we'll be able to make the upgrades there. So really what you've got left is whatever building capital, building needs you have, as well as your streets and infrastructure out there. So, I think we've made some strides this year. We've got a ways to go, and we want to take this incrementally so you understand it, agree with it, and can give us good direction as far as the future for capital planning.
Looking for comments, aren't you?
It's up to you.
Please.
Mike put together the where we are sheet with
Yes.
capital planning, and I see that
It's on the agenda as well.
we've
Yep.
spent about $50,000 year-to-date, more than what the prior council had set for this year. And I understand personally all of the thing about financing and where we get the money. I think the hardest thing for me is the process by which we go selecting what projects are put into what year. I don't see a whole lot of effort going into that And that's the part for me that we really got to get down and decide, what's the most important thing for 2016, and then get the money. We're, month after month, we go by and we aren't making any decisions, and I don't like that. And pretty soon, we're going to be here in the fall trying to guess at these projects. So there's got to be some way that you can grade the projects or judge which ones are most important. And that's what I'm looking for help from. I don't know that I can decide that myself. I don't know if you guys understand. Does that make sense?
It does, and I agree with you. The one piece that we still need to incorporate, and that's having Kevin Larson and his staff with the streets. You got $7.5 million there, plus a couple $1 million here on roads. That should all be, what are we doing? We decide, let's spend $2 million on the roads, and all of a sudden, now I got this 7.5 over here. We need to put those two together, and especially when you're talking about grading the projects, well, if we know that we want to run fiber here, it certainly doesn't make sense to tar that road and then have to rip it up.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So we want to make sure we have those scheduled, and those two need to be working together with Public Works. And I think, putting that plan together and then discussing it here is a good idea.
Yeah, and then once we decide in a somewhat firm manner that this is what we're going to do, then we can give you direction on the money. But I think we're getting the cart in front of the horse here a little bit. I think we got to decide what are the projects, and I don't see a process in place to do it. And I'm all for a policy and a justification process that somebody's, you can put the money in there, but then when you actually come down to getting whatever it is, you have to come up with some justification that makes sense to move ahead. I need a new outboard for my boat. Well, what's wrong with the other one? Nothing. Well, there's monies that somebody might really need more than somebody else, and that's the part that I'm lost in a little bit here.
Let me try to address some of those issues. You'd mentioned budget. The item you have on your screen in front of you right now, and I'm going to point out the number that was in the approved budget just to show you where we're at to date. Our adopted budget is the number I just circled. And the second column on that says, okay, how much did we spend to date? And the timing of expenditures is such that you don't buy all your capital on day one, you don't buy it all. At the end of the year, it gets purchased throughout the year as it's required. So we've got a little ways to go on that yet, because there are some purchases that are pending. And the previous schedules to that 6-page document in your council packet is our progress to date with respect to the budget that was adopted last December. Now, the next number I'm going to point to you on this is right below the circled number. And remember, in January, the city decided we needed to issue some equipment certificates to purchase, the fire trucks, street maintenance equipment, some equipment for the parks. And so what I've done is I've identified how much money we've spent out of those certificates. Remember?
In defense of the past council, we were looking at, and the process was difficult at the time, but we were looking at an annual capital expenditure budget, which was monies over and above our operating expense of $1.5 million a year for 5 years. And if you really analyze that, and if we were going to finance that over 5 years, you discover at the end of 5 years, the annual service fee for the budget was $1.5 million. And I kind of get a little disturbed over that. I think if we're going to see that in our plan, maybe our tax rate isn't high enough to support all the wish things that we want. And my other comment is tangling the two revenue streams, the communications company and the city of Cross Lake as a taxing entity, could be difficult. And I think we could get lost if we continue to look at the debt that is incurred by the communications company for the fiber optic build-out relative to the city trying to maintain a status quo and maintain the roads. Just for whatever it's worth. I think we should be aware of both of them, but I don't know that we should tangle them.
Let me finish the first comment on where we're at the budget, so I can close this item. The second number on here represents the proceeds of the equipment certificates we issued earlier in this year. This is what we've spent to date, $365,000. The remainder that we have to spend of those proceeds will be spent when we finish up the fire truck, okay? Now, the last line on here, you remember we sold some equipment. We took the proceeds of that equipment and we used it to reduce the amount of debt to issue. Now, I remember when we did the budget, we didn't have enough to do the roads, so this was part of the plan we came back with to say we can get some of this stuff done and identify the non-road items later. So I've met with most of the department heads. I've asked them for updated information on these numbers, and we're progressing towards what we budgeted on that. So there'll be more to come. I can give this to you each month if you're interested in it. I heard the comment too on, what does this look like? And just as a refresher for everybody, this is the graph that David Drown had presented. And what we're looking at is, what is our existing debt? What do we typically spend for capital projects in a year? And for the projects that we adopted or identified in our 5-year road plan at budget time, this is what that funding might look like. So if you take the $500,000 roughly for debt, principal and interest, the roughly $300,000 funding we've done the last couple of years, 2014 and 2013 for roads, you get around $800,000 for debt service on existing debt and cash paid out for new projects. And so taking those projects and extending them out to the road plan and trying to come up with a financing method, this is what that might look like. And as you can see, you'd issue a combination of debt, cash purchases, and some years you'd issue debt, some years you wouldn't. And so over time, your plan is almost self-correcting, where on your current path, you get out to 2029 with a moderate adjustment for inflation, you're basically cash flowing your projects. So that's what it would look like. And the policies that we've presented to you earlier, items F1, incorporate this type of methodology. So it's not something you're going to correct in 1 or 2 years. It's something that'll be a program consistently applied over time. And the goal is to, when you get out at that point in the future, that's what you would look like. But to get the things done that you need to now and to bridge you to that point where you pay cash for them, this was one way, suggested way that could help you get there. So does that make sense to everyone?
Are you implying that the numbers that were in front of us for capital expenditures for 2015 and beyond during the budgeting period were not justified?
No, I'm not implying that.
Well, you're only showing here a fraction of that. I don't know how a fraction implies small, but it isn't
No,
that small.
again, this is your road project that was presented in the
I
budget.
think that people
under the
deserve to
5-year
know
plan.
that. This is just the road projects.
Correct, and we've been very clear about that.
I didn't hear you say that today. Anyway, because we have other things, we have equipment, we have maintenance. I'm not sure that maintenance belongs in the capital expenditure category, but I don't know how we handle the sewer plant, which was a significant number right alongside of this. So,
Well,
can I recommend that we have a good, productive work session to get a few of us educated on where your heads really are on this, and can we really make it work? I love the idea of having a capital planning and funding policy. I think that is excellent. But I would, I think we can't get started early enough looking ahead and making sure we all understand what we are committing for. Is that a fair request?
Right, and that basically reiterates, the intent of this memo back from December, that was presented at the December 8th council meeting, that, basically says, I'm going to point you to the first bullet there where it says, based on the discussions with staff at the December 2nd meeting, we recommend the following. Establish a capital equipments project fund using the amount identified in the budget at the budget time to establish that. The graph I just showed you from that David Drown incorporated into that policy, that's where he got those numbers.
Right.
Was he took
But
that information and projected that out, so.
That 350,000 keynoted in that letter was from previous year's reserves. It
No,
wasn't-
that was not.
It wasn't taxed in this year, was it?
That was for the pay 2015 levy, because you remember, we had, during the budget process, we had a little over $500,000 of just road projects in there. And we said, we don't have the funding for that, to implement that, or we're too late in the process to do that in 2015. So we said, let's try to get some of this done, and that was the amount we identified from the budget year we're in right now to establish a fund to start taking care of some of those things, so. Yep.
Good.
They weren't reserves, it was new money, that was in the 2015 budget. Okay?
Thank you, Mike. It's a tough assignment.
Anything else on the capital? We'll discuss scheduling a work session to talk about capital planning. If I could have that on the July agenda, and then we'll schedule a date. Does that
Can
work?
we even do it earlier?
If you want to do it earlier, that's certainly up to you.
I don't know, whatever you guys have got time for, and whatever you think. I just,
From our I'm sorry.
let's go ahead.
From our standpoint, I mean, we're ready. Like I said, I had a department head meeting with the departments, and department heads are getting pretty frustrated. It feels like they keep bringing in plans, they're spinning in circles, we can't get anywhere. And in deference to yourselves, and some of you are pretty new on this council, and it takes a while to get our arms around it. And so, a work session sounds great, and I think certainly the newer members would benefit, as well as the departments, and
they
figure out
bring-
where this thing is
Were
going.
they bringing those to us? Are they frustrated with us? Because
Well, they're frustrated that we can't get moving with the capital. We came in January with a recommendation based on what the Public Works Commission stated was a couple $100,000, and the council said, no, we're not going to do that right now. We want to get an overall policy or plan put together. And that's when we turned David Drown on this, and I think he's come up with some pretty good recommendations. And we just have to fine tune those recommendations, whatever those are, and move forward. So, but, we're in June. As far as any major street construction, I mean, that's not going to happen.
No, no.
Anymore.
No, just looking
We can
forward.
do some, certainly there's some funding available, as Mike said. I mean, we had a pretty good chunk of cash that we had, set aside. Some of it got used up with or will be used up with the equipment certificates, but there's still a pretty sizable chunk of money left that you could take a look at your capital and pick off a couple items, if it's a community center roof, or if it's a siding, or if it's the Andy's parking lot. I mean, some of those things, still could be done this year. Those aren't, major engineering feats to get those types of things done, so.
Well, I think the earlier the better would be great if you guys can figure out a way to do that.
Yeah.
It's really up to you and what you poll the council as availability.
And what your schedules are, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Rowe and Mr. Vogt, didn't we, last meeting, Mr. Strand had some maintenance issues he brought before us? And I forgot, didn't we approve him going ahead with some of those items?
Yeah, he had the seal coating thing in it, and we were going to talk about exactly where that money was coming from. Was one of the last items on the agenda. We did do the seal coating.
Well, I
We've got
noticed
that
there's
moving
been-
forward.
It's in process, it's not finished yet, it's in process.
I know some of the streets had
crack
where they
fill.
put the tar and the rock down and stuff to fill those cracks in and stuff, and I've seen that's been going on, so we,
We expanded that.
And we expanded it. So we're good with that part of it. At least we have that part going?
Yep.
Okay.
And the funding, the final piece of the seal coat funding, we talked about that last meeting. We said we'd come back to you with where the funding is going to come from for the doubling the funds.
Sure, the final funding for that, we had 25,000 in the budget, and, Ted came back and said, we need to do more than what we had budgeted for that. And to Dan's point, if you remember, in prior years, you would take some money here and there. If you didn't spend this budget in this year, or part of that budget in that year, you'd reallocate it, instead of letting the budget lapse, and you'd actually take that money, take it out of the city's checking account and take it over to another bank and put it in the checking account and say, we're going to use that at some point in the future. And you remember early on, we had some trouble identifying, there was some difference of opinion to where that money was actually allocated for its use. You remember we used some of that to pay for the remodeling for this building. There's still some of that money left that we haven't spent that has not been reallocated. And there's about $60,000 that's still dedicated for, things like this for roads. So it's not in the budget, but the funds are available as a prior year budget reserve to use. So Ted should be fine. Make sense? Steve, you look like you have a question. You look like you have a question.
No, I'm fine, I'm just,
I remember him talking about the potholes, and you see the potholes. The
yeah.
the winter was hard on the roads this year.
I'm getting complaints on them now, but I just tell them that we're a little short on funds, but we're working on it. Some of the ones they've identified, I said we will cover.
Ted's giving me a thumbs up, so I think I answered his question.
All right,
Okay,
cool.
we're good.
Thank you, Mike.
Item 2, a discussion on the city administrator's role. I just wanted to, we're halfway through the year of 2015, and I just wanted to give you an idea of where I am at with my consulting business and where I'm at with my life. I currently provide consulting services in both Cross Lake and Little Falls. Little Falls, I do substantially more hours. By substantially, I mean like 4 a day, 4 days a week. So it's like 16 hours generally in the city of Little Falls. That, they're in the process of hiring a full-time administrator in Little Falls. Town of about 9,000 people or so. They had a full-time administrator for many, many, many years, and they went with my services since August of 2012. I told them at the time that I was planning on working through 2015. Well, we're halfway through 2015. They're in the process of hiring a city administrator. And that, originally they had the idea that they wanted to get that done quicker, but they held that off a little bit. Right now they're advertising. Advertising close next week, and they think that they would have someone full-time on in probably September or so of this year. So my work in Little Falls will end in September. And what does that mean? Well, it means I could put in more time, certainly in Cross Lake. However, another glitch to that is that my wife plans on retiring. She's had some medical issues and plans on retiring at the end of 2015 as well. We do have a place in Florida, and we plan to spend our winter in Florida. Now, what does that mean for my work here? A couple of things. It depends upon what you're comfortable with. If you want me around and want to see me a lot more, it would be pretty difficult if I'm also in Florida. However, a lot of what I'm currently doing for the city is virtual. I'm doing it via phone or email or whatever. Is that enough? Is that what you want? You have to decide that. I feel things are going pretty good. I met with the department heads today, was going to have more of a discussion about what my role is and what it has been. But, from my standpoint, I would like to continue. If you're interested, I could continue providing the service that I've been providing, even after the first of the year. Now, I could do that certainly over the phone or via internet. Now, that may not be exactly what you want, but maybe you're okay with that. I would be, last year, as you know, we did not have a February meeting, afforded a couple of you to be able to go elsewhere for that month. But I would be certainly happy to fly back for March or April meetings, and at least attend your council meetings, probably spend a week here in Minnesota, so I could spend much more, that portion of time in the office, but provide other services via phone or internet. If that's not sufficient, then you have to decide and take whatever steps you feel are necessary between now and the end of the year. But I wanted to give you enough time, give you an advance of where I'm at, and that's kind of why I put it on the agenda in the middle of the year. So,
Well, I, for one, have been very happy with your services here. I think you've done a lot of good for the city and saved us some money, and quite a bit of money in a lot of different areas. And as I had said when I campaigned for office 2.5 years ago, is that I didn't know that we even needed a city administrator. Somebody attacked me for being wrong on that because you're here. He said, well, so I was 20% wrong and 80% right. Because we don't have a full-time one anymore, and I think you're doing a fabulous job. And part of the reason for that is because we have great department heads here. And that's, Mike Linus has been a great find for us. You've been a great find for us. And with Mr. Hinkie and Strand and others, Mr. Hartman and such, we've got some good people working here. And so I think that makes it easier that you don't have to be here all the time.
Shar does a great job here,
Oh.
too. So
By the way,
you knew
Shar
you were
was a
going to forget
diamond.
one as soon as
Oh.
you started bringing them up. You do have excellent department heads. Mayor and I had a conversation last week kind of about this in general, and one of the things I mentioned is I think your department heads are better today, to be honest with you, than they were when I started. And I think they're a better functioning group because I'm pretty hands-off. They're letting me know when they need things from me. They're keeping me up to date and in the loop, but I'm allowing them to make the decisions that need to be made, and I think they're pretty comfortable with making those. Are there some areas that I could provide some additional assistance? Yeah, there probably are. Should I be attending more meetings of commissions or committees or whatever? Probably so, at least in certain instances, and I'm certainly willing to do that. Even now, through the end of the year. But it's really, I mean, you have to discuss this and decide what you want. If you want someone in the office more, if you want to, hire someone else, I mean, it's really up to you. But I'm certainly ready, willing, and able to continue in the role that I have been. I may not be here, or I may not be in Minnesota for part of the time, but I'm willing to continue the work.
Other comments?
And I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Could we, or one-on-one or whatever, I'd just like to kind of hear from you a little bit more how that would work during the winter. I don't really have a problem with it per se, but let me bounce it off. I'm liaison in a couple areas and stuff, bounce it off them and, what potential problems, and we've got a little time to work on that. I don't see a problem. Like you, I do a lot of my work remotely, computer, telephone, whatever.
Yeah, how about if, maybe if when we have our discussion on the budget, the department heads are all going to be here. I mean, it might be a good time to talk to them a little bit about that. Since they're here, we can have more of a work session type discussion about that. I mean, that'd be great. So we'll try to set that up. If we can do it in June, we'll get it done. Okay,
Sounds good.
that's it.
Thursdays are my best day. Thursdays are my best day.
Okay, Thursdays,
If you're
good.
going to do it during the day.
Sounds good.
You have better days than others, like the rest of us?
Well, Thursday's my best day.
Anyway, thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
What's this dial-a-ride?
Oh, I'm sorry, update on Dial-A-Ride. There was some discussion, I think at the last meeting, about Dial-A-Ride service, and is there any way we can expand it coming up here and provide more service? I sat down with the director of Dial-A-Ride, the
What's the
executive
Crow Wing
director
County
now.
Transportation
Yep.
Services, right?
Yep,
Okay.
Brainerd Crow Wing County Transit, and talked to them about service to Crosslake, and they said, as a matter of fact, they're going to discontinue rather than enhance the services. They had so little ridership coming up here, it just isn't cost-effective for them. I also had discussion that the Transportation Advisory Committee, he called it TAC, fortunately I knew what that meant. Transportation Advisory Committee is looking at cutting costs in any way they can. What I would suggest is if you would like continued or enhanced dial-a-ride service up here with the transit system, is to contact Paul Teedy, the county commissioner. There's 2 county commissioners on the TAC, Rosemary Franzine and Paul Coring, and they're both interested in it, apparently somewhat interested in cutting costs in any ways. Who isn't? But if there are people up here, patrons, that would like the service, we should try to accommodate them as best we can.
What you're really saying is they want to increase profitability, I suspect, right? Would that be a fair statement?
It's very rarely that it's profitable. Most of it comes from state subsidies.
Well-
But it's right. It's taking a bus all the way up here, and if there's only one rider that's paying,
Well, I understand that,
bucks,
but
whatever.
their schedule is not easy. They pick you up at 7:30 in the morning, and they take you from Brainerd at around 2.
yeah.
Now, that, if I got a 1 o'clock appointment or a 2 o'clock appointment, I can't get a round trip. And I think their schedule really, and I've looked at it many times, hey, I'm going to take my car down there, maybe I should just get a ride back. Well, from 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon, and I have no transportation, I get to wander around.
It's a long day.
It's a real time consumer, and it's somewhere, to me, it's a scheduling issue. Because I think it's a great service. I don't mind the 7:30 in the morning, but it's just really difficult to get back. So that's my
Are we
comment.
paying anything, City Cross Lake pay anything for this Crow Wing Transit now? Do we have anything in our budget for that now?
There's nothing in the budget for Dial-A-Ride, no.
That's county funded.
State of Minnesota does most of the funding for Dial-A-Ride. It's transit through some tax, transit funding. I know Brainerd had a separate levy for the city that they had for Dial-A-Ride, and I'm assuming Crow Wing County for the rest of the county has a levy for Dial-A-Ride as well.
Don't they get you $5 away, $5 a trip?
That
Something like
could
that?
be, I was
I mean,
going to
it's-
say something.
it's
very-
insignificant.
It's very minimal, highly subsidized, highly subsidized.
Local ride, well, notoriously called the drunk buses in town. Mr. Brodt, Clyde Brodt, approached me about a month ago. I had lunch with him. They're struggling, but what they're really struggling with is the daytime work. They're doing a lot of stuff during the day. What people don't realize is at night they're hauling people from bar to bar and home again. But during the day, they're hauling people to Crosby, to a doctor's office, and then they sit there and wait for them, which can be an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and then bring them home again, and they're charging them like $10, $15. And they said, we really can't afford to keep doing that. Is there some way the city could help us? And this just opened that door up. I don't know how the city could help, but maybe through Paul Teedy and the county, maybe we can figure out a way. Because I know a lot of people that come up here for a vacation, they got to catch an airplane at 7 o'clock in the morning, and those guys are at their house at 6 o'clock to pick them up and haul them to the airport. I know they got the advertising with all the alcohol and the beer on the sides, but they're hauling people, they're a taxi service
Yep.
all day long. And they'll come to your house when you want them there, not on their schedule, and they'll bring you back when you want to come back.
Like a taxi
Maybe we should get Clyde Broad in here, talk to us about it. He's talked to me, too.
Yeah, okay, good.
And sadly, I haven't been able to find a piece, particularly with the Crow Wing County Transit running. However, if they're going to quit, maybe we could work something else together that would be cheaper for the county, maybe some form of subsidy, and put Clyde on a demand basis, and see what we can do.
There might be an opportunity there for Clyde anyway, and if there's funding available for it, if it's state money, county money, apparently not ours, but maybe we can help Clyde along that, because it's certainly a valuable service for the citizens of this town. I mean, he's taking people to doctor's offices, he's taking them grocery shopping, and he doesn't always have a full bus. He's got 3 or 4 people in there, and he said times $10 a piece, I barely cover my gas, let alone I gotta pay somebody to do it. So, all right.
Worthwhile. We'll check into that. Shall we?
That's all I have.
Huh?
Thank you. No, that's all I have.
All right.
Sorry, I
thank you.
missed that one.
Thank you, Dan. Commission reports, planning and zoning.
Good evening again. We have a couple items. First item on the agenda to look at quick is just the monthly statistics for what happened in May, and we did see an uptick in new construction. We had four new dwellings permitted in May compared to 1 at this point last year. So but we are seeing, it's interesting though, the permits are down a little bit overall. And so there's a little bit of a surprise there because there's been an uptick in other areas, particularly at the county. And so that's just what I wanted to point out more than anything is that while permits are down, the more significant permits like new dwellings are definitely up compared to where they were at this point last year. Any questions about that report? The second item that I have on the agenda is an application for a meets and bounds subdivision to create 3 lots. The applicant was Carl Steenberg, and his location of the property is part of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 29 down on the south side of Cross Lake. It's off of Happy Landing, and so I'll kind of show you a map here of what he's proposing to do. So what you have here is a meets and bounds subdivision, and we're looking to create 3 lots. So on this area here, you've got Highway 103, and then north and south, you've got Happy Landing Road. And the part of the issue that we ran into with this is that when Mr. Steenberg purchased the property, it was right before the ordinance went into place and the zoning changed. So at the time when he bought the property, the zoning on this would have allowed him to create these parcels as was with the zoning district. What happened was after that, this was changed to residential 5 zoning. And so Mr. Steenberg went through the process at our meeting last month, and the Board of Adjustment did approve a variance to allow 1.6 acre lots in this area. And so as you'll see, that's what the subdivision shows as part of this. There are adequate septic sites in the property. There was a phase 1 archaeological study to determine if there's any archaeological issues out there, which turned out to be negative. And some of the feedback that we got from Dave Reese was to look at there being an easement along Happy Landing Road for drainage and utility. And that has not been recorded as of yet, but I would recommend approval of this as submitted with the contingent condition that before any approvals can be signed off by myself on this when they prepare deeds and that to be recorded, that there would be the 33-foot drainage and utility easement on Happy Landing Road. And I'd also want to point out, I think I lost my train of thought on this. What was I thinking? Must not have been that important, so.
Mr. Pence, we talked about, or I guess you and I didn't, but I did talk with Mr. Hergenhoff and with Cheryl. The 33 feet isn't an additional 33, it's just
Nope.
changing the language, basically. Right now, the easement for Happy Landing is for road purposes, so it's going to now say for road purposes and utility
Drainage and
easement.
utility,
Drainage
correct.
and utility.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yep.
all we're doing is changing the language on the easement, not changing the amount of the easement.
It's not an extra 33 feet, it's
Right.
just making sure the existing 33 feet can be used for drainage and utility. Are there any questions?
Chris, I was at this meeting. This proposal is very consistent with all of the lots around it. It is not out of character. It's not anything other than the legalities that you guys would put into it and make it right. It looks to me to be a good subdivision.
I'd agree with that. When the Board of Adjustment, before they made their decision, they did do a site visit and went out and took a look at the property itself and looked at the surrounding area to make sure that it did fit, and they felt that it did.
I move that we approve it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Do we want to talk about this now, Chris, about, this is one of those areas we talked about maybe modifying the ordinance a little bit. With 2 years ago when we changed, or a year and a half ago when we changed the ordinance, there was going to be some unintended consequences here and there, and I know you're familiar with one near you. And so, and this is one of those things that we eliminated 15 zoning districts down to 5?
7.
7, sorry. And in that process, that's how this thing got hit, and we talked about, there's going to be a few people that just purchased property. This guy literally 6 months before the ordinance changes when he bought this, expecting to get 4 lots out of it. He had to jump through a lot of hoops to get 3. But anyway, we talked about perhaps making another zoning, because it goes now from 40,000 square feet up to 5 acres, correct?
Correct.
There's nothing in between.
Correct.
So there's a big gap there. Part of that's because shoreline, and if that one map that you had that showed the pink, what's that, page 2 on there? And that's the shoreline district, and once you're outside the shoreline district, all of a sudden it jumps immediately to, what's it called, R1?
R5.
R5, I'm sorry. That's the rural residential zoning. And so, and I know the county dealt with that a few years ago, because they had a big jump from, I don't know what it was, 5 acres up to 15 or something, and they,
Yeah,
something
county
along
had,
those lines.
it was more of a, it was 2.5, once you're outside of the shoreline, it was 2.5 and 5 acre.
Okay.
So that's what this.
And so they and maybe put and we talked about this a while ago, is maybe in certain areas, maybe not all across town, but in certain areas that are already residentially zoned, like this area on the south side along 103, in that area, there's a lot of residential zoning down there. Maybe that we should have a jump up zoning class in there somewhere.
You know, we haven't had many of these, if any, in the past 8, 9 years. I don't know that it's time to change the rules. This was really an easy one to handle because it was pretty obvious. And I don't know if it really warrants a rule change. We may run into one, I don't dispute that is very complicated, but this was really straightforward. It was kind of like huge lots in the middle of acre and a half or whatever. These are what, 1.6 acre lots?
Correct. Yeah, they're bigger than what's surrounding it. They're actually
I mean,
larger, so.
they're big lots.
Yep.
The one thing I now remember, what I meant to tell you beforehand, was that the Parks recommended that we do the fee for the parks fee on the 2 lots. So they did, Mr. Steenberg did submitted a check to the city before he came to the meeting tonight for $3,000 for the 2 park dedication fees. So that was the recommendation from there. So I think we might, I don't know if we need to amend the motion to incorporate that, so we know that that was the accepted practice. But that's what the Park
motion?
Commission recommended.
That was your motion, I think, wasn't it, Mr. Hecox? Do you want to?
To approve?
To approve, and then, but including that meets with the $1,500, do we need to amend it or just do a new motion?
You can do a new motion, just for the park dedication.
Yeah.
Okay, I also move that we accept the $1,500 for the park dedication on 2 lots,
Yeah.
to 2 new lots. So it'd be $3,000.
$3,000, correct.
Park
We
dedication
already have
fee.
that check in the office already, so.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Chris, I have one other question for you. Maybe it's not the right time, but the county looks at fences around gardens as not fences, as long as they're 10 feet from the property line for flowers, vegetables, whatever. We charge $75 to put a fence around a garden.
Put a fence around what?
A garden. You need a $75 permit to put a fence around your garden.
In the county, a fence is not a fence if it's more than 5 feet away from your property line.
Right.
So that's the definition of a fence for the county, is if you take it more than 5 feet off your property, it's not considered a fence, and there's no permit to be needed at that point, so. I don't know, I can't, John, I can't think
Well,
of
I
too many
think it should be
situations
the way
where
the
they
county
have
is.
permits around a garden. Can you remember that for fences around a garden? To me, I think, from a staff perspective, we can use a little common sense on that and look at that and say that probably isn't something that would trigger a permit to try to fence off your garden to keep the bunnies and the deer out of your garden so they're not eating on your stuff. So I think we can work with the folks
You all right
on that,
with
so.
You all right with that?
Well, if we should, at the P and Z level, utilize in there, maybe bring it up there and see if they can just add one sentence to that ordinance that might clean that up a
The
little bit.
definition, we sure could.
Definition that would clean it up a little bit better.
You know, the problem with that is we go forward with that, and the next thing you know, you got to have a sewer inspection. And then we go round and round, and then you know, by the time you get that all taken care of, the deer took care of your garden for this year.
It costs more for that than the fence itself to buy. so.
Absolutely.
We don't want city fees to cost more than the actual product that they're trying to do.
I think the judgment is a very important piece of
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
I wouldn't trade you for your job, by the way.
Well,
Thank
that's a
you.
good deal for me, I guess, so.
Congratulations again on another national award.
Thanks
That's
a lot.
awesome.
I appreciate the support, and we'll just keep going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, I did, yeah. Ted gave me another idea. I just wanted to give you a quick update. We do have the decontamination station out at the Public Works Building is up and running. And so, for aquatic invasive species. So folks need to know if they're in the city or in the county, they can come over there. It'll be open 7 days a week from basically sun up until sundown.
So you can wash your boat.
Yep,
And your
no cost
trailer.
whatsoever. You can get in line, and there'll be somebody staffing that, like I said, from now until, you know, the boating season is over. It'll be up and running 7 days a week.
Clarify for me, if I haul my boat out of Whitefish and I want to go to some other lake that's not contaminated, if I wash my boat before I leave, is that sufficient?
Once you, so
When I
you
pull
say
out
you
of
come out of,
Whitefish-
come out of Whitefish?
Go over and wash the boat, and then I go into a clean lake, is that
Yep,
sufficient?
Absolutely it is.
All right.
Absolutely.
People should know that.
Yep. We recommend if you are leaving Whitefish and heading off to another lake, we recommend that you stop by and get it decontaminated. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get it done. And, yeah, we want to do what we can to prevent the spread of aquatic invasives as much as possible.
Thank you for that, Chris.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question. Do people know when they drive down the road, do they know what's there?
We're going to
Is
have,
there a
there'll
sign?
be we'll have like one of those teardrop signs that'll be right at
Great.
the edge of the,
Yeah.
right where 3 comes
Thanks,
up, so people
yeah.
will see where to get back to. And it's nice, people need to know too, there's a nice big turnaround, there's a lot of room, so you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're jammed in there and stuff. There's a couple ways to get out and stuff too, so
If
it'll
we
be
don't
very
know how to
convenient.
use it, do we call Cheryl?
Excuse me? Have
I
Cheryl
said,
do
if
it?
we don't know how to use it, do we call Cheryl?
Well, you're not the one using it. We'll have trained level 2 inspectors that'll be there to run it for you.
Oh, is
So
that
it's-
right?
It's not a self-serve because that's got about the water
good to
temp and the
know.
pressure.
All right.
No, that's not a self-serve.
All
There'll all be somebody staffed there whenever it's open available, they'll always have a staff person.
We're
there.
finding out more about this as we go.
Yeah, it's
All
not
right.
self, with the temperature of that water, the risk is too high for somebody to hurt themselves with the pressure
Okay.
or the temperature, so.
And they'll take tips? It's
No,
free,
It's a free, doesn't cost you a penny.
but they should take tips.
They better not take tips.
Yeah, be careful you don't blow the rollers off
And
your
it-
trailer.
I should say this too, thanks for Ted for reminding me, but Ted and the crew have been instrumental in getting this up and running. So he's been a huge benefit. He helped us get the shed put together, him and his staff kind of took an old shed that they found up there with and got some material, put it together. He's was responsible for getting the water to it, the natural gas, the power, getting it all set up, getting the electrician out there. So if it weren't, frankly, if it weren't for Ted, this wouldn't be up and running yet. So him and his crew did a great job, and I just wanted to really appreciate that from our standpoint. And I know that he's been keeping track of his time for what he's done, and that should be billed back to the county so we can reimburse the city for the time Ted has put into that. So thanks for
Fabulous.
that very much. I appreciate that.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good
Kev.
evening, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens. What I'm before you tonight is to replace a lawnmower. We budgeted just about $25,000 in this year's budget for a new lawnmower for mowing the cemetery, city hall, phone company, everything we take. It's about 10 acres we totally take care of, that the Public Works takes care of, and they're out with the lawnmower. We tested a Toro, a John Deere, and an Exmark. At this time, I would like permission to purchase the Exmark from AA Equipment in Jenkins, Minnesota, for the cost of $17,147. All 3 machines were similar horsepower, size, and a bagging unit on the unit, so.
Ted, is there any chance I could ask you to delay this a month and let the Public Works Commission go over this with you? They haven't had a chance to.
I have the need for the mower now.
What happened to your other one?
It's still working, but it's getting towards its last legs. It's well used. That's why we're just going to run it until there's nothing left. There's not even worth much to trade in. The dealers didn't want it.
How old is it?
I want to say it's either 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, it is,
But 10 acres of grass
per week.
per week. It's got some hours on it.
It's well used. The deck is getting bent and torqued, and we've had to weld on it a few times because it blows out the sand is very corrosive and is eating holes inside of the deck, so.
In the interest of our local business community, did you shop locally here? I mean, you did take a look around at what was offered by,
I did. I
Okay.
looked at if you look at the memo, I did look at what Ace Hardware had here, a Toro Z Master 6000. A very good unit. I guess in my opinion, after talking to a lot of the commercial guys that are using X-Marks and the Toros, the X-Mark is a better unit.
Okay.
It's a little more money, but it's a better unit.
I was just thinking that, here I go on the outsourcing. I think there, one of the things that somebody mentioned to me was, have we ever looked at hiring this done? I mean, if you have no maintenance, you just pay a fee. The guys there's probably over a dozen lawn mowing companies that if you pick an area, they could probably take care of the cemetery. I don't know how much it'd be, but it's worth the thought. Then you don't have to maintain it. And you
Maybe
could
the
keep
next-
the guys on the, on the sewer commission or on the sewer projects, the guys that you really need, and rather than have them sitting on a mower. That's kind of one of the thoughts I had. Maybe the commission could have helped you with that. That's all I'm saying, so.
And maybe that's in the future is we're, with the budgeting coming up, we look at that. We've got 10 acres, I can give you the acreage, and we can go out and get a contract and see what half a dozen of them or 3 or 4 of them would give us for pricing.
Kind of did that already with weeds, didn't you? Weed
We
control?
kind of did, yeah, and it got very expensive very quickly,
Did it?
yeah.
Do you use stamped decks or fabricated welded decks on those?
We have a stamp deck now, and the other one before that was a fabricated.
Which one do you prefer for durability in the sand?
They're both just about the same,
Is that right?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know you talked about this a while ago. It's in the budget, correct, Mr. Linus? Okay. I hear you, Mr. Schrupp, and I think that's a great idea, but let's do that the next time around.
Yeah, well, yeah.
For,
The commission can look at that.
yeah, I think it's something that needs exploring. I think you're right with that. I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve this and get him on his way, keep our city looking beautiful.
Is
I'll
this bud-
second it.
What was that?
I
Second?
said, I seconded it.
Was this budgeted?
Yes,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you, Ted. One lawnmower. Park and Rec. The Mr. John Henke. The gentleman that invented pickleball in Cross Lake.
It's a sore subject right now.
Oh,
Good
is that
subject.
right? I'm sorry.
But I'll elaborate in a minute or two. Okay, staff report tonight. Weight room update. Things are going great. Selling a lot of memberships, a lot of people involved down there. Not many people coming on Friday nights. So we talked about that at our commission meeting a couple weeks ago. What we're looking at is maybe shortening our Friday night shift down to 7 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. And we talked about this back in April with the council, and the understanding at that time was if I saw that there was some savings for the city by not staffing certain hours of the community center, that it wasn't being used, to go ahead and do that. I guess Mark kind of reminded me of at that meeting about that. So I wanted to come to you tonight, kind of let you know what we're looking at. We're having a problem also finding part-time staff to work on Friday evenings. I've got a couple of part-time employees that would be willing to work till 7, but they don't like working till 8, and we don't have people using the building after 7 o'clock anyway. So I wanted to give it the month of June, at least the first couple, 2-3 weeks, to see how it progressed, and if it got busier, maybe we could continue with staying open till 8. If not, I don't think it's in the best interest of the taxpayer to continue to be open till 8. So I would plan on making an announcement, putting up some signage at the community center. I don't think it's going to affect a great amount of people. I mean, we're averaging less than one person coming in between 7 and 8 each Friday night, so it won't affect too many folks. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and be happy to answer any questions anyone might have. We're not changing any other of our hours. Some people thought we were going to cut hours in the evenings for the rest of the week. We're not looking at doing that.
Good.
Questions, comments? Everyone's okay with that? Okay,
I
thanks.
think we leave that up to your discretion.
Okay, great. Senior nutrition continues Monday through Friday. Been having a lot of new people try our nutrition program this year, thanks to Donna Kiefer's classes. We got a lot of those folks participating. Also our garden and art club, a lot of those folks, when they have meetings scheduled there, are coming in and eating meals, and that helps our numbers. It helps our grant funding. We also have people just coming back to the community. They're learning about this service, that if they're homebound, we're delivering meals to folks. And so it's an essential service, but it only can continue if people participate. So if you haven't tried it, come down and try it. Like I said before, our grant funding is based on participation. So the more people that come and use the service, the longer we can continue to get those meals out to people that really need them. So come check it out. Just call by 4 o'clock the day before your scheduled meal, and we'll get you on the list. If it's their first time, just have a little bit of paperwork to fill out, and then you're good to go. So. Fitness room, we've got a great fitness room. A lot of folks, like I said earlier, are coming to use it. We have a Silver Sneakers program and Silver and Fit program. So if you're on Blue Cross Blue Shield, Medica, you can come down and get basically use of the fitness room for free if you're of retirement age, which would be over 60, I think, is their qualifications there. Silver Sneakers classes, Donna offers Silver Sneakers classes Monday through Thursday. And if you haven't tried those yet, you come and check it out. She leads the class, so you just show up and you can fulfill your requirements for a healthy start to your day. Pickleball, we talked about that a little bit ago. Amazing numbers in pickleball. We've got over 35 paid members. We only have play for 12 people currently at a time. And so we've got a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines and getting upset about not having court time to be able to play. And so that's a good problem to have. But we are experiencing some growing pains with that. I never expected that we'd have this many people. It's America's fastest growing sport, and we can see that even in town here. Most people, when they try it one time, they're kind of hooked. It's really a fun sport, and a lot of people are checking it out. So we've added some additional times to our court time in the gymnasium. I've ordered an additional net, and we're also going to be putting some tape down on a couple of the tennis courts outside to utilize for pickleball play. One of the controversial things that are happening right now is that a pickleball net is 34 inches, a tennis net is 36 inches. Those courts are tennis courts. They're not pickleball courts. We're trying to use the space as best we can. A lot of folks want us to start lowering those nets to 34 inches and then put them back up to 36 inches. But what happens is when you take tennis nets and lower them and raise them up again, every time you do that, you're putting additional tension on those posts. And eventually, those posts will weaken and you lose the rigid structure of those posts. The courts start to crack near the posts, the cracks start to radiate, and then you get back into the same place we were a few years ago when we had to spend $153,000 to replace the courts. So we're looking at other alternatives of how to fix this. You can fit 4 pickleball courts on a tennis court. A typical tennis court would cost about $35,000. So what I've been telling the pickleball players that give me grief about it in the morning, I asked them to take out their checkbook and we could get rid of this lickety-split by making a donation. So I'm not putting it by them with as many people that are playing. We could, we talked about it with the PAL Foundation today, we could raise the money pretty quickly to be able to get this done. So PAL is making that one of their priorities, and we have the space for it, we've got the support for it. I don't think it's something that's going to go away, so instead of trying to balance a couple different sports on the same surface, we might just go ahead and, if we can raise the money, try to expand those pickleball courts at the community center outside. So just giving you a heads up there. If anyone has any concerns or questions, feel free to ask them or give me a call. And if you want to find out more about it, stop down to the community center and we can set you up and try the sport out. They play Tuesdays and Friday mornings, and we got just a ton of people there playing. So yoga takes place Tuesday mornings at 10. We have a AAA driving class coming up. If you need the refresher course, July 23rd. That's taking place at the community center. Security system update. We had $5,000 included in the 2015 budget for security improvements at the community center. We've talked to Birchdale Security here in town. They've come out. We're going to be adding some video monitoring to the exterior of the community center. We've had some vandalism in the past, and we also have some staff members that are a little nervous going out, especially in the fall and winter months when it's dark by themselves at night. And also patrons that have expressed that, we've tried to add more lighting to the community center, but I think the monitors will help us deter vandalism. I think it will help us deter other illegal activities that are going to maybe happen in the park and help us contain some of that activity. So we're working with, like I said, working with Birchdale. Should be able to have those additions in the next month or two and provide a safer environment for our guests and our staff that work at the community center. Volunteers, we're looking for some volunteers. This has been something we worked on for a couple years on our patio garden outside the library. We've got 2 ladies that spend 8 to 10 hours, a couple days a week over there, helping basically weed that area. We're looking for folks to come out and help even an hour. Once a month would be great. It'd be a good start if you can sacrifice an hour to come on Wednesday mornings. They bring coffee and treats. Just an hour of help makes their job a lot easier and really beautifies the facility. So it is quite a big area for two ladies to handle. It would be difficult. They do their best, and it's a fabulous looking area, but they desperately need help. So if you like to garden or would like to give them a hand, please let us know at the community center. Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock we meet, and we'd love to have you. Shuffleboard and bocce ball update. They poured concrete today. This is a PAL Foundation project done by a donation from a local resident. And Dan Miller's heading up the project. And we have a lot of folks that have volunteered their time and other people that have donated some supplies to get this done. And we should be up and going with shuffleboard for sure by mid to late July. And we'll start work on the bocce ball courts as soon as the shuffleboard courts are done. We'll also be adding some picnic tables to that area, and so it should be a nice addition to the park. Compliments of the PAL Foundation and the donations that they've received from some local citizens. One item that didn't appear on my staff report tonight that Ted and I were talking about this morning, we have an old shed that is down by the softball field that's been there since the mid-90s. And that shed is home to a lot of wasps and a lot of mice, and it's got some broken windows that have been boarded up from vandalism. And it's a building that we'd like to take down and dispose of. However, we had a citizen said that they would like to try to refurbish that and move it off-site. And we can't give that building away. We can rule it as surplus and put it on Craigslist and have someone come in with the highest offer and take that, whether this gentleman or anyone else want to buy it. At least everyone has an equal opportunity to purchase this thing. And it cost us $300 to $400 to take it to the demo pit to get rid of it, according to Ted. So I'd rather not spend the money and have someone haul it off and kind of get rid of our headache and have them, if they can refurbish it on their own site, so be it. But I'd like to advertise it and rule it as surplus, and we don't have a use for it. It's really just become quite a hazard for us. It's pretty old and run down.
Which building is that, John?
It's the one right behind, when you come into the park right away, right to your left-hand side. It's a gold and brown building. It's pretty rotten on the edge. I don't know, I'd like to get rid of it. It's definitely an eyesore, that's for sure.
Is that the building on the west boundary line?
The western boundary, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to declare it surplus.
I'll second it. Motion made by Wessel, second by Rowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's pretty easy.
All right, that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thanks.
City Attorney's Report, Brad Person.
Yeah, a couple different potential enforcement items. I wonder if it maybe makes sense to kind of go out of order. But you should be welcome, ask me questions if you'd like to go into the specifics of either one. But there's a couple different potential enforcement actions we can take on two different properties. As of today, actually now both owners have at least hinted at wanting to cooperate. And so before we would get into the specifics, maybe you could jump to H3, was my memo to the council. I assume you've had a chance to look at some of the pictures and so on, and the violations themselves, but I'm looking for direction on kind of where you want to go. One is just start with a violation letter to each landowner and see if they'll just self-correct and the issue goes away on its own. The problem on one of these, we were not able to contact one of the owners, but they came into City Hall today, or maybe yesterday, but real recently. So that problem has gone away. So that might just stop right there. Maybe it'll solve itself. But they did, getting down to the rest of the memo, I think these two fact patterns kind of highlighted to staff that our ordinances could probably use an update. I mean, I think have good luck that this town doesn't have too many of these problem properties, so maybe the council believes it's really not worth staff time right now, but our current ordinances don't really label with specificity exactly what we're trying to regulate when it comes to problem properties, which is kind of in the eye of the beholder.
Is this the one on County Road 66, or is this the other
Well,
one
when
on
it comes to
Brookline?
policy, I mean, these are just examples. That's why I'm kind of,
Okay.
if you choose to just see if you, for now, just want to write a letter to both owners, this issue gets tabled for now in my mind, the two specific enforcement actions.
Good.
So I'm kind of jumping to, they do kind of bring to light, though, these are examples of things that, if you want us to regulate them, our current ordinances have two problems. One, they don't really very clearly specify exactly what we're talking about when it comes to nuisance or junk or things we want to prohibit and regulate. And secondly, it's got kind of outdated enforcement mechanisms. So if we can identify it's really is against the ordinance, it really just allows for misdemeanor prosecution. And we would want to, staff, if this is a problem in your mind, we want to broaden that enforcement mechanisms to say, we can clean it up on our own and assess the costs. We can take a different administrative citation or fine mechanisms. There's lots of things we can do that are probably a better way to address it than court action or misdemeanor, which are the two ways that the ordinance allows now. So, easy to come back. I did give you some kind of, hopefully staff got that to you over the weekend, just kind of there's a sample league ordinance that's a lot better than ours. There's many others. I think Dan and I both have experienced with a couple other ones. Don't know if you want to go down that path or if that's a concern in your mind or not. And that's the last question is simply on these two specific ones. I guess my vote would be, based on the current reaction from the owners, is just write a letter and have staff work with them for now before we do anything more. And that might give us time to revise our ordinances before we started enforcement anyway. Because if you do want to take action, I would recommend updating the ordinances before we do that. And it's my understanding that one of the two owners is here today, but again, I don't know if that's relevant, if it's simply, that's what I'm looking for, direction on, maybe we should give it some time and see if the landowners can kind of correct it on their own. Question one. Question two, do you want us to come back with draft ordinances and kind of rework some of these ordinances on these topics?
Aren't these things covered by state statute as far as public health goes?
As I say in my memo, there are some state rules as well. One very specific on hazardous buildings, which I think one of the properties maybe could potentially fall into if the staff really hasn't done enough investigation to see if it would or not. But to be honest, when it comes to state statutes in general, I mean, the whole idea of how the law should work is there are state statutes out there, but if the city wants to enforce them and regulate them, we should adopt the portions we like into our own city code. And we could be more restrictive, by the way, than, or change what's in the state statute as well. So, yeah, there are some state statutes, but there are with a lot of things, that we regulate or control, and typically would kind of customize it to our city and put it in our city code. We do have some city code regulations now, but it's very sparse. I mean, we really haven't, you can tell no one's really looked at this for years.
Not a huge problem, but it is a problem if you live next to it. The Big Pine Trail one, we had one down there last year that was a foreclosed property. Is that the same one, or is this a different one?
No, that was a different one, and that was cleaned up. It was a bank one, is my memory, and
Hadn't quite taken title yet, and they assured us that once they did, they would clean it up, and they did.
yes, so
Okay.
that one was resolved.
This one's a new one.
Have you written letters to both these property owners?
No, so I think that would be the typical first step anyway. Again, the problem was that we didn't have an address on file for one of the landowners, but now they've made contact with City Hall. So I think we have a way to communicate with both landowners.
Sure.
Thank you.
Please, Chris.
We do have information to contact one of the issues we got with the little Yukon property. We know how to make contact there, but with the other property, we don't have access. The gentleman is here who, the property owner is here, but we don't have any, we haven't been able to obtain any address or phone number, any contact information. So we don't have that information. Right now, from a staff level, we did take a letter and we put it out on the door of the building and took a picture. We asked the police department to deliver the letter, and there's nowhere to bring the letter to. So there is, at this point, there's no contact information to be able to do that with on the Big Pine property.
But that's the guy who's here today?
Yeah, he's here.
And he's willing to work with you, or is he, hasn't talked to you yet?
The communication's been pretty sparse. I mean, as far as what'll happen when and how and the process and that. So he is here tonight, and I don't know if you want to, inquire as to what the plans are or not. So.
I think Mr. Person's idea is a good one. If they can talk to him, and with the other landowner, I know who that is, and I think he's just getting it back. Another, like a foreclosure on the other one. So that one, he doesn't have he's got to wait until he owns it before he can go in there and clean it up. So,
Is the council's consensus good enough on that? To write to them, or do you want a motion?
Well, no, I am looking for, it doesn't have to be a motion. I'm looking for direction on, well, one, I think you just heard the latest update. I guess I did hear that. We don't have actual address of the one landowner, but he's obviously here. He's heard the discussion. We have posted the notice. So he's on notice both in practice and clearly he's here. So he knows that if this isn't cleaned up, we are going to take action.
Sure.
Is what I'm looking for consensus on. And before you did, I'd want to come back with a revised ordinance anyway. So in my mind, between just saying this out loud right now and maybe a letter to the other landowner, just kind of give them the heads up that we believe there's some things that need to get cleaned up. We can kind of identify that the best we can and just kind of put them on notice that we're working on our ordinances and we'll start enforcement if it's not cleaned up on their own. Will be my suggestion. But I want to make sure that, that's the consensus of council, that makes sense. So that's aggressive enough for now, and it does require an ordinance redraft. This is an important issue for you guys. You want to spend the time on it.
Does he wish to talk tonight?
That's up to council whether you want to take, if he bothered to come, you might want to listen to what he has to say.
I think it makes sense to attempt contact and try to negotiate with them and get them to clean it up, because we certainly, they don't want us to move in there and just roll over it and take it out, I don't think, and put it on their tax bill, which I would assume would be one of your solutions in a new ordinance.
A new ordinance would have that, and as you said, it's always more expensive if the city does it. So it's always, I think for both parties, it's always best if the landowner does it on their own.
Sure. So everybody okay with that? Contact them first before, and then Brad's saying that he would like to work over the ordinance.
I'm in agreement on both issues. One, let's let this play out. We've got the one gentleman here, and the other one I know is going to as soon as he gets possession. But on the ordinance itself, I'm in agreement. Let's let them work this ordinance a little bit, not getting too heavy-handed, but giving the city a little bit more tools than we have now to resolve this, because again, it's not a problem for any of us because it isn't next door, but if it was,
Right.
then we don't have the tools to do anything with it.
The only reason I brought up maybe that he wants to talk, if there's some sort of a time frame that he, if he's in agreement with us, that he could tell us all in 2 months, I'll do my best to get it cleaned. Then at least we know, when he leaves today, we don't know. And you'll have, you know what I mean, you'll have it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And we'll wonder, well, what did we agree to, or what did he agree to, and save you the time of writing the letter.
We are going to post a new letter, and I guess I can just put him on notice right now that, in my mind, this will be, assuming there's no pushback on what we're suggesting right now, in my mind, next council meeting, so a month from now, we're going to have a draft ordinance review. And if it hasn't been addressed by then, we would then start enforcement at that time. So that would give him a timeline.
Okay.
You might not choose to start then, but that will be on the agenda for enforcement if it hasn't been cleaned up. And staff will have an update on the current condition.
Good.
First of all, poll the council. Anybody object to this process?
No, it gives him a month
Yes, it
head
should be
start, so.
good as consensus.
Yep.
Thank you, Brad. Did you want to bring somebody to the podium, did you say?
I guess
No?
at the end, you're going to have one more chance at public forum like you always do. He'll have a chance to come up if he'd like. I don't think there's more that needs to be said. One more, so I kind of addressed a couple of things. Just wanted to give you an update too on, should I get the agenda in front of me? Well, we already talked about the Bilski matter. I was going to bring that up, but I'll have something to come back to council next meeting on that. And then the other enforcement issue with the tents and campers, that was scheduled for trial tomorrow. And by a little scheduling conference with the judge and the other attorney, we've agreed to just submit trial briefs on that and avoid a trial, because there really aren't facts in dispute here, and that's how the judge kind of suggested it to go forward. And the landowner did stipulate in writing that until it's resolved and the judge makes a ruling, they will not have more than the current ordinance allows on site. 'Cause the fear, even if we had a trial tomorrow, it might be 2-3 months before the judge issues a ruling, and by then, the summer's over.
Very good.
So at least this gives us, hopefully, assuming they honor that, they will not exceed the current, numbers for campers and tents until we get a judge ruling, and that'll be done by trial brief, and I can't tell you when we'll have that ruling, but hopefully in the next couple of months. And then after that, of course, depending on what the ruling is, we'll decide what happens next. So that's an update on that. And nothing else unless you had questions.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman and Brad, just recently, in the last couple of months or so, updated both our administrative citation ordinance and our nuisance ordinance, property maintenance ordinance, we call it in Little Falls, and they're in Word documents. And I'll get those to Sharon. We'll go ahead and have those to you by your next meeting. Gives you something as a baseline.
Guide.
Maybe it's more than you want, but you can pull out sections that you don't like, so.
It's a good idea. No sense redoing it if we got
We
something.
put a lot of work into it up there, or down there, so might as well use it.
Sure.
Thank you, Brad. Is there any old business? Mr. Vogt, is there any old business? New business? Everybody's awfully quiet. Public forum. We, once again, no action will necessarily be taken on any issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on a future agenda of the City Council. Speakers must state their name and address, and each speaker is given a limited time. Anybody here want to talk? Oh, we can listen to her, yeah.
Good
Cindy.
evening, gentlemen. I'm Cindy Mugato with the Cross Lake Chamber of Commerce, and I want to again thank you very much for the city's contribution to the fireworks display. I want to encourage the general public to drop their coins and their dollars in the cans that they'll find at retail locations around town to help ensure the fireworks will go on this year and next year and the year after that. And I want to remind everyone that the display will be on Friday night, July the 3rd, at dusk, which is about 10 o'clock from Sand Island in the middle of Cross Lake. So again, it's Friday night, July the 3rd for the fireworks display. That's
You
it.
got any other big things coming up before we meet again? Boat show?
Boat show is at Moonlight Bay on June 20th. Yes.
No?
Wooden
Anything else?
Antique Boat Show. Get the PAL calendar is
Yep.
available at 32 different businesses in town. The community center, there's probably a stack here at City Hall, and at the Chamber Welcome Center, all the events that you want to be at are listed in that calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, I encourage you to pick up a PAL events, summer events calendar. It's jam-packed full of things that you should think about participating in.
Mayor, Council, I'm Mike Reardon, resident. I live at 14089 Norway Trail, about a third of a mile right over that way.
Okay.
I know you've seen me here the last few council sessions, probably wondering why I've been sitting in. Well, a couple different reasons. One, as a resident, just seeking to understand how you operate up here and interested in good governance. I've been involved in that my whole career, both as working in the county, as a county engineer and a construction engineer in the past. Prior to several years ago, 18 years down in St. Louis Park as a public works director. The last 2 years, we purchased a home here in 2011. The last 2 years, I retired out of government in St. Louis Park. And in full disclosure, I've been working for Bolton and Mink as an engineer there and doing city engineer services in a variety of cities around the area. But my point in being here is like Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood. So I've been just sitting here listening and learning. And personally, I have an interest in, like I say, good governance here, and in particularly public works. Second of all, I live on a street down there which needs to be reconstructed and hopefully have sanitary sewer put in. I believe it's in the 5-year plan, or it was. So I've been listening to your discussions to see how you're doing on capital planning. And I guess I'm glad to see that you're talking about you have some money. I guess what I've listened and heard is you have a fair amount of money. I don't know if you have enough, just the right amount, or not enough. You've asked some questions about that, and I see you struggling with that. I see you're coming up on a workshop, and so a big part of my message here is I really want to encourage you, when you're in your workshop setting, to have somebody there or some skill that can help you, not so much on how to get some money, but try to determine how much money you need. What do you own? What condition is it in? What do you need to do and when? That's the exact question you were asking earlier, is how do you determine what needs to be done? And it's not real hard to do, although on streets and pavement management, that's pretty complex, but it's an awful lot of work to put that together. And I don't think you're going to have those answers overnight. Matter of fact, that might take you many months or a year or two before that all comes together for you. I'd encourage you to hang in there, but get that skill piece. That's a foundation piece. If you don't know what you need to do, any road will get you there. So that's really what I wanted to encourage you on.
Don't walk away just yet. Application forms to volunteer are available from our city clerk, and I would encourage you to lend your expertise to our city if you're so inclined.
Well, I've thought a little bit about that, but I don't think I can do that right now while I'm working for Bolton and Mink. That could be somewhat of a conflict. For me to sit in and listen and provide informal advice or comments, that's and as a resident, I think that's okay.
Very good. Well, don't forget about us. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Public forum's still open. Anybody else? We will then close the public forum. How do we want to do you now have a closed session on our agenda, which means it's not public.
We should make a motion to close the open meeting and go into close, and then decide if we're going to do it here or go into the mayor's room, or however you want to do it.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to, can I adjourn the city council meeting? To adjourn the city council meeting.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second it.
Motion, Schrupp, second, Cox. All in favor?
Aye.